Well, hello everybody. I hope you've had a good week. I want to give you a quick shout out today. While tomorrow will be the fourth Sunday in a row that I have not been in church, and I'm guessing you're like me as well. That's incredible. That I would have never dreamed that I would have missed 4 Sundays in a row. I went to church before I was born, and I am counting on the last place I go before they bury me will be to church, and they'll carry me out. But here I am, 4 Sundays in a row, no church, and I'm not sure when I'll get to go back to church. That's got me thinking. It's had me thinking a lot lately, and in some ways, I've been getting more church than I got before I went to church. Man, our guys and gals are stepping up, and it seems like every day I'm getting a couple requests and opportunities to listen to worship services and to hear preachers preach, and live streaming, Facebook Live, YouTube video conferencing. The church is doing pretty good if you really think about it. How necessary is it going to be for us to go back to church? Is it okay? Is this new normal? Is this all right? And so I've been thinking a lot about this, and I want to chat with you just a minute. And let me just kind of couch it this way: if I understand the Bible indicates that God does indeed care about church. I know I've heard it, and I always cringe when I hear this. I really do. Preachers mean well, but they'll say, this building is not the church. We're the church. And I understand what he or she is saying. And the good news is this whole ordeal has caused us to get outside of the walls, and that's important too. But is that building, a place that we call church, is it important? Well, the Bible teaches us that God has always had holy places that He sets apart. That's a part of what holiness means, that He sets apart. And this is different than any other place in the world. It begins all the way back to the Garden of Eden. The world looked pretty much the way it does for us now. But God made a garden. He set aside a special place, put Adam there. He said, this is a holy place. This is where I will walk with you in the cool of the evening. When God called Abraham out of a pagan culture and said, I'm going to start a whole new covenant, a whole new relationship with mankind. I'm going to call it Israel. This whole experiment almost, it would seem. Well, when Abraham left, he didn't worship this new God that had revealed himself in the old temples. But wherever Abraham went, he created a holy place. He built a brand new altar. And there was a holy place that God met with Abraham. When God took the children of Israel out of slavery, and He was going to put them into the promised land, He said, before you go, we've got to have a holy place. And one of the first things they did before they ever even started toward the promised land, there at Mount Sinai, God gave them detailed plans on how to build a holy place. We call it the tabernacle. And God said there in Exodus chapter 25, He said, and there I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubims, which are the ark of the testimony. And then later on, God settled on Jerusalem, on Zion, and that was the holy city. If you've ever been there, it's different when you go there. And it's not just psychological, emotional thing. There is a difference there. There's the holy land, there's the holy city, and then there was the holy temple. And the best we've got of that right now is the Wailing Wall. And it's incredible to go there. It was a holy place. And then later on, in the New Covenant, the New Testament, the early church, they went to the temple every day. And then when they were kicked out of the temples and they were kicked out of the synagogues, they began to build their own churches, to have their own houses of worship. We probably don't think about it, but much of the New Testament is dealing with corporate worship and how to work together as a church. That's what much of the New Testament's about. And I think about the words in Hebrews where we were admonished to to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together as some do. And right now we're some of those that are doing that, unfortunately. Now, I hear you saying, now, are you telling me that all these preachers that are preaching on Facebook Live, and I mean, that's just what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a video recording from my home. Are you saying that preachers are bad for doing that or wrong for doing that, and that I'm wrong for watching my service tomorrow in my own home? No, 1,000 times no. There's times that we have to, in extreme times, we have to take extreme measures. That's where the synagogues are not in the Bible. When you go to any larger city or town today, you'll find a Jewish synagogue. That was not a part of the original plan, but when the temple was destroyed, they had to create holy places to meet. And so, just like the early church and the Jewish people, that we had to make accommodations. The early church, when persecution came, they would meet in a graveyard. We call it the catacombs, and other places. And so, no, I applaud what our ministers are doing. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of you for participating with your church. But this is what I'm saying, that your church, you must not lose your hunger and your longing to be back at the house of the Lord. There's two reasons I think that it matters. And I think the first is that your church, that location, the trouble of going to that location is your true north. It's where it's from the church that you look at every other part of life. The psalmist in Psalm 73, he was really struggling with how the wicked and why the wicked were prospering. He wasn't getting it. And he says, I was struggling until I went into the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their end. See, the whole church is not meant to be easy. Church is not about us sitting in our easy chair and working church around our schedule. Church is not about, we don't fit church into our weekend. We fit our weekend. We should fit our weekend into going to church. Church is the true north, and everything else revolves around it. It's the holy place. And when we look at life through church and through going there and the Christian frame of mind, that we go to that holy place. And so church is a true north for you. There's another reason that church is important, and that is it is a vital indicator of the health of a Christian and the health of a culture. The Bible's full of this. When the people, you could judge the people's spiritual condition, their relationship with God, by this one thing. Just look at their church. Look at the temple. Are the ministers being taken care of? Is the house of God being kept up? Are they taking pride in it? Are people going to church? Or is there a decline in attendance? Are churches being closed? Are churches being run down? Are cultures shutting the door? Like in communist China, it's easy. They have to hide. In Muslim countries, the church does not have freedom to worship publicly. In Europe, we can see the slow death. Europe is becoming a non-Christian continent now. And how do we know that? Take a look at the church buildings. And so it's a diagnostic test to let you know where you stand, your passion for your church, your passion for your minister, the way you work your calendar around church instead of making church work around your calendar. Look at our country, and I think we could all be honest if we really were honest. The church attendance has been on the decline. Church is about us. It's not about God. And it's a sign. Our commitment or lack thereof of going to church is a sign, a sad sign in America that something is amiss. And so the church being closed right now is a sign that something bad is wrong. And it's, of course, this coronavirus, which should be driving us to pray, what is God saying to us? And I think it's just symptomatic of even a spiritual issue. And so what am I saying? I'm not telling you not to go to church tomorrow and be a part of what your pastor is saying and what he is doing. But I am challenging you not to lose your passion to go to church. And so what should we do? Let me just leave you with a couple takeaways. I think of Daniel. He was in exile. Jerusalem, the walls had been torn down, the temple had been torn down, but every day, 3 times a day, he would lift up his window and he would pray toward Jerusalem. Right now, we can't go to church. You can't go to church. I didn't think I'd ever say that to God's people. But we must lean in to our church. We must pray toward our church. We must keep God and his holy place central in our heart and in our life. And so tomorrow, I don't care if you listen to 12, 15 different preachers tomorrow, but at the appointed time, if you only listen to one, and you must listen to your pastor. He may not be that cool guy that's 2,000 miles away that has this fancy, all the technology, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he may be that simple parson in your little community. But that cool guy 1,000 miles away, he doesn't know your name. He's never once prayed for you and your family and your children. But your pastor, appointed to you, at your house, at the house of God, where you worship, where your children were dedicated, where your parents and grandparents were buried or their funeral services were held, where you bent a knee to God and gave your heart to God, that pastor, that's your church. And so tomorrow, I don't care how many others you listen to, make sure you listen to your pastor. He's fighting for your soul. Number 2, be diligent in maintaining and keeping your church, the upkeep of your church. If you eat, make sure your pastor eats. If you have utility bills, your pastor has utility bills. The way you take care of your church, the way you take care of your pastor is an indication of your relationship with God. Send your offerings to worthy causes. Share the bounty that God's blessed you with to others. I'm fine with that. But your tithe and your key offerings, they go to your house of worship. They go to support and maintain your church and the ministries of your church, and you're the ministers of your church. And then number 3, make sure you take care and stay in touch of the household of faith where you worship. Jesus said, "By this shall all men know that you're my disciples, that you love one another." And there's a lot of needs out there, and I applaud the church for standing in the gap and making up the hedge. But I want to encourage you to check in and take care, stay close and connected to one another. Make sure the widows and the elderly and the children and the young and even the young couples, ask the hard questions. Are you okay? Do you need anything? There's people out of work. There's people struggling. Take care of your church family. Lean in, lean toward your church. So tomorrow, one more time, we'll be at home. I don't know when it'll end, but I do know that church buildings matter. Holy places matter. And I couldn't help but think of Psalm 137. I'm going to be sitting in my chair tomorrow, and I'm going to be watching church on the television. That's the best I can do right now. But I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to accept it as a new normal. New normals are not always good. The new normal is no-fault divorce. The new normal is abortion on demand. The new normal is we've redefined marriage. I'm not going to accept it. That's not going to be a part of my life. And the new normal is we don't go to church on Sunday. I will not accept it. I think about the children of Israel when they were in captivity. The buildings were burned down. The churches or the temple was closed. It was destroyed. And they said in Psalm 137, "Beside the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept as we thought of Jerusalem. We put away our harps, hanging them on the branches of poplar trees. For our captors demanded a song from us. Our tormentors insisted on a joyful hymn. Sing us one of those songs of Jerusalem." But how can we sing the songs of the Lord in a pagan land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, Let my right hand forget how to play the harp. May my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I fail to remember you, if I don't make Jerusalem my greatest joy. Let's don't get comfortable, brothers and sisters. This new normal is not God's best. Yes, let's worship tomorrow, but let's lean in like Daniel of old. Let's pray. Let's worship toward our house of worship, the holy place that God has given us. Well, God bless you. God bless you, especially in the North Central region. I give honor to all of our pastors. I give honor to all of our members. May God richly bless you. Let's keep running to win.